Okay, my name is Lorna, and I grew up in St. Mary's Parish in Edison. Had many wonderful years there. I'm fourth generation, and we were an exceptionally busy parish. Everyone took part, and eventually then we had to move to St. Charles in Burlington, and we did so very well, and we brought extra life to this parish.
My name is Andrea, go by Andy Ovenel Martin, and I am the second oldest child of Lyle and Teresa Ovenel. There were 5 kids total in my family, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and I have basically lived my entire life in Burlington, wonderful 74 years, and a member of the St. Charles Parish.
ORTIZ, I'm 7th generation here in the valley, farm workers, migrant workers that arrived here in the 70s. You know, our church was in the fields, in the migrant camps. That's where the Spanish Mass got started. Then we moved to Immaculate Conception. Our community moved to Immaculate Conception. Then we moved to St. Charles in the early 80s.
Hello, my name is Silverio VIVANCO Sanchez, and we arrived here in 1974. We started, like Jose says, on the Immaculate Conception Church. We tried everything we can through the migrant masses and camps. I'm father of 8 kids, happily embraced from St. Charles people when we first got here.
My name is Harold Page. My first relationship with St. Charles is I was a member of Immaculate Conception Parish, but I was selected to be the architect for St. Charles when they decided to build this new church here. And so I became involved with the building committee and worked with them to build this church back in 1990. And then more recently, I've become a member of this parish starting about 5 years ago, and have become just very emotionally involved here.
I'm Father Paul Magnano, priest of the Archdiocese, ordained in Rome in 1967. I was here as the pastor back in the, I forget if it was the 70s, 80s, or 80s and 90s, but for 12 years, the churches here in the Skagit were pretty much in disarray, and Archbishop Hunthausen sent me up here to try to bring some order. And I became the pastor of our 6 churches, but I go way back to when Padre Miguel and Padre Patrizio were the Spanish-speaking priests, and I'd like to speak Spanish, but it comes out Italian. If I speak Italian, it comes out Spanish. Gracias por todos.
My name is Carmen WERDER, and I joined St. Charles just about the time that Silverio was working with the Spanish masses, so it was 1972, so 53 years ago. And I'm really pleased to be in the company of these people. I've been involved with the building committee, which was a real pleasure, and also with some subcommittees that have done things like decided on the stained glass windows for the church here and the statue of St. Charles, which came from Italy. And I'm currently involved with some of the committees and groups in the parish, St. Charlie's Angels and the Book Gang and Sages.
When I came up here as pastor, St. Mary and Edison had just been sold for $16,000 to a woman. I wanted the church back. I went back and knocked on the front door. She had no interest in selling. But every time I drive through Edison, I stop and look and pray at St. Mary Church in Edison. I was also here at St. Charles, where I'm now the parish priest. I'm here from time to time. I love St. Charles Church.
Priests started coming here in the 1890s. There was no church. So they would gather people and have mass in homes, or else they would use a room in a hotel in downtown Edison. And this went on for quite a while, and then finally someone in the parish gave property. And so then they started to save money and get ahead and work the families and everything, and they built the first church in 1892.
I mean, for me, it's a gathering of a family. We go back a ways, and for me, you know, our church was kind of like our people migrating from the beginning of times, and that's how our church was kind of put together for the Hispanic community back in the 70s. You know, I believe and I see our church that went beyond the walls. We saw the church as a building, but the real life of our church was also in the community. I don't know that we ever felt that we didn't belong, but there were some times where you know, we felt like we were pushed around from one church to another until we found a home at St. Charles, and it became our whole life. You know, I grew up in, I guess by the grace of God, you know, Father Holland found us, Padre Miguel found our family. We grew up very, very poor, a single mom. You know, she worked very hard, but never had enough to provide for us to pay the rent, and so we would always be bouncing around from home to home, and we didn't have too much, you know, to pay the bills for the food and to buy food. And Father Miguel would always come by every week to check on us and to provide for us. But one day he invited me to go with him to the migrant camps, which I didn't know too much about, but that's when our ministry got started. You know, I was only about 15 when I got started within the ministry, and I have never left. It became my life. And so we would go out to the migrant camps to check on the people, to walk with the people every summer, but also to provide for them as much as we could. We had a migrant mass every week out there in the migrant camps, which many of our priests, local priests, but priests from the archdiocese, and every year we had 1 or 2 bishops that would come and celebrate mass. So again, the church was not just in the building itself, but it was outside with the community.
A couple things that come to mind, and where one was singing in the choir. I don't know, I think I was just like 10 or 11 years old. It was in the old building, in the old church up in that choir loft, and I remember Margaret Reinert was the choir director, and some of those old hymns, like Faith in My Father, is still one that, you know, comes to mind when those songs come up. Some of the, I'll say, you know, milestones, I guess, of being a part of this community for so long. My daughter, Melissa, and her husband Tom were the first couple to be actually married in this building. And then my mom and dad celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, renewing their vows, and was blessed by Father Miguel, Father Mike Holland at that time. Some may not know that the rocks in the baptismal font came from family property up in Concrete, and my son Kurt helped my dad gather those rocks and transport them down here. So
one of the best things that I lived here in St. Charles is when we started to try it out. Father Paul, Father Mike, and so many priests try to put the bilingual masses together. I know it wasn't too easy, but we will try everything, you know. I think when it happens, it was for me, it was just beautiful.
And that was a real challenging time.
Jose, your you know, the values of the Hispanic community wanting to be able to have processions informed that question about having the building sitting back here, so you could have those nativity processions and gathering at the front and marching back and things like that. Those were all issues that informed the layout of the site the way it is.
I think that I'd like to just think about or call to mind the memories where we have had really happy times, particularly around the bilingual, planning the masses, Dorothy Oswald's wonderful lunches, and we laughed and had a good time, and the liturgies turned out well too. And the time Lilia did the cooking demonstration with enchiladas, and there were Anglos and Hispanics at the table who enjoyed the meal and talked in our own languages sometimes, but we communicated with each other.
So what I remember when, we had a sign above where the windows are from Lyle Memories. We had one in spirit, uno en espíritu. And for me, I think, our community, our church is, that's what's in my heart, and that's what our community is based on, our church community, and it was because of the priests that we've had here over the years, starting with Father Paul and Father Miguel. They're the ones that guide us in this life of one espíritu, one in spirit, and that's what our community stands for, our church community, and that's what's embraced in my heart.
This church is an absolute model of where the whole world could be and could be. This 11:15 Mass is standing room only, not just Hispanics, not just Anglos, but the whole culture of the world. And not just ethnicities, but ages. And it all began with one Mass, and now look at what we're celebrating right here at San Carlos, St. Charles, St. Mary Addison Church. Amen.
Exactly.